In the early 70s, we were exposed to a new kind of television series that was based on Martin Caidin's 1972 novel called Cyborg. That series was The $6 Million Man. It ran from 1973 to 1978, and it's about a former astronaut, Colonel Steve Austin, played by Lee Majors, who experiences a NASA test flight accident, and they have to go in and rebuild him, and in doing so, it gives him superhuman strength, speed, and vision due to the bionic implants that replaced his original body parts. He then takes on the role of a secret agent of the fictional U.S. government office titled OSI. The way the series starts and progresses is somewhat bizarre. It doesn't start with a pilot and then launch into the first season. Instead, it starts with 3 TV movies that aired in 1973. And this was all before the series started in 1974. The title of the series, The $6 Million Man, doesn't come from the title character's salary. It's based on the cost of rebuilding him after he's involved in this crash, and then the continual upkeep to keep him running properly. If you look at Steve Austin from the very start, he's pretty arrogant. You got to realize he's one of the best test pilots in NASA history, with the implants of his bionic arm, bionic legs, and bionic eye. Once they're installed, he's a little bit apprehensive and resents these implants at first. But as time progresses, he adapts to his new abilities by running extremely fast, rescuing children, and punching through walls. His eye has a special feature to where it has a 20-to-1 ratio zoom and also has infrared capabilities. One downside to his new parts are that they quit working when it's extremely cold. After the movies premiered during 1973, the series takes off with an episode called Population Zero, which is set in a town called Norris. A scientist has decided to unleash his fury on the U.S. by using his knowledge to render unconscious the population of Norris. But Steve Austin steps in to stop him. From this beginning, the show runs 99 episodes, with Lee Majors working closely with the OSI to prevent bad guys from all sorts of schemes. The early episodes of the series had Austin killing villains on occasion. As it became perfectly clear that Austin was becoming a role model for kids, the level of violence in the series was decreased, with his character rarely, if ever, actually killing anyone anymore. The aircraft that is seen crashing in the show's opening sequence is an M2F2 lifting body configuration done by Northrop. The audio sound effects are from the crash that occurred on May 10th, 1967 at Edwards Air Force Base in California. The dialogue that was spoke during this crash was re-recorded by Lee Majors. The actual test pilot, Bruce Peterson, hit the ground at 250 miles per hour. He tumbled 6 times and ended up losing the use of his right eye following an infection and had to stop flying altogether, and this basically ended his career. It's pretty understandable that Peterson really hated watching this show, at least the beginning sequences, because he had to relive his accident every week, courtesy of the show. The creator of The $6 Million Man lived in Cocoa Beach. Martin Caidin authored the book Cyborg and was the real creator behind the fictional Steve Austin. In the book, he uses the name Dr. Rudy Wells, with the permission of a rather eccentric Cocoa Beach physician that had the same name. This doctor was off the wall. He did some of the weirdest things in his practice. He used to go around on roller skates in his office as he saw his patients. He was considered one of the most bizarre yet accomplished physicians in the area. In 1997, Caden's ashes were scattered from the air over this area of Cocoa Beach. He became extremely attached to this Space Coast area. In the spring of 1977, before production began on what would be the show's final season, Lee Majors refused to go to work until his contract demands were met. At one point, it was reported that the producers were really considering hiring a new actor to take over the series. Among those that they considered was Gil Gerard, Bruce Jenner, and Harrison Ford. But as far as Harrison Ford went, the producers said that he was unsuitable as an action hero. Guess they were wrong on that call. As most people know, the show had a television spin-off called The Bionic Woman, and it featured the lead character of Jamie Summers. This show ran from 1976 to 1978. We'll be doing a video on this popular series too in the near future. The success of the spin-off of Bionic Woman was really a turning point for the TV networks as they became convinced that the superhero fantasy genre was a viable primetime entertainment material and not just a comedy parody like you saw with Batman from 1966. These two shows led to other superhero series explicitly based on comic book superheroes. Alan Oppenheimer was cast as Dr. Rudy Wells for the show's first and second seasons, but then he left. Martin Brooks replaced him and became a regular cast member throughout the remainder of the series. Oppenheimer does return for one final episode in season 3 after Brooks takes on his role, as this episode contained flashbacks to a previous episode and the producers didn't want to reshoot the scenes. According to a lot of the production crew that worked on the show, Lee Majors was fairly approachable during the filming of the first season. But then once the $6 Million Man became popular, he kind of shied off to himself and only would mix with people in his own group of friends on the set. A completely unexpected effect with the show's popularity was that the producers discovered that some of the children who were real fans of the show were deliberately trying to seriously injure themselves in hopes that they could get bionic parts like Steve Austin had. This led to the producers and to Lee Majors writing letters to at least a few of these kids to tell them that the show is purely fictional. Near the end of the series, Lee Majors experimented with changing Austin's look by growing a mustache. This proved to be terribly unpopular. The idea was immediately dropped, but not before several commercial tie-ins, including a comic book and a lunchbox, had been produced with this new look. One thing I find that's really interesting is when this show was done abroad, sometimes they changed the name of it, especially in Israel. In Israel, its name was The Man Who Is Worth Millions. And they changed it to that because they didn't want the term 6 million in the title. Because immediately when you say this, the Jewish population thinks of the Holocaust. Take a look back at the $6 Million Man. It's always a fun show to watch. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.